Hello, Gary. Welcome to Voice of Scrolls. And thank you for giving me the honor and privilege of publishing your book with Ecclesia Publishing. I just want to introduce you. This is Gary Byford, one of the leaders and the teachers at Freedom City Ministries in downtown Toronto. Gary teaches regularly every Sunday, I think, at Freedom City Ministries, which is an amazing ministry that helped the people around St. Jamestown area. But if Gary likes, he could go ahead and share that at whatever part he wants to share this in this interview. But Gary, the first question I would like to ask you right off the bat is the journey of your book. This book that you have written, I know it's dedicated to Kim, who is a good friend of our family for so many years as you are. And she is the Lord right now. What has led you on this journey to writing this book, Walking on Water?
Well, it started off interestingly, not as a book. It was just a sermon, where, as I say in the book there in the forward there, that I just felt God telling me one morning when I was waking up and kind of like half awake, half asleep still, um, the words "get out of the boat," and I said to God, "What do you mean get out of the boat? I don't understand." And it's like He was telling me that since I enjoy writing so much, and that to write about the story of Jesus walking on the water, and as I write about it, and that He would reveal the purpose of what He was trying to tell me there, and so I started writing, and that. But it was just a simple sort of sermon that I shared at our church at the time, and it was a while afterwards that I just felt this growing impression from God that He wanted me to go deeper into that story, and to kind of flesh it out, and um, be able to explain to readers, as well as encourage myself in my walk with God, not how to trust Him more. And that's pretty much how it evolved.
So Gary, I would like you to tell us a little bit of, you give us the journey of how your book started, how the Lord like sort of planted a seed in your heart and then it grew into this beautiful tree of a book. So tell us, give us little tidbits of the book, and show us a picture of the book. Show us you have
Okay,
the
well,
yes.
this is the picture of the book there that was finally published, I believe, in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And a quick synopsis of going through the chapters, and that is simply um, building our trust in God happens in just everyday life things. And where I start off in chapter 1 saying the calm before, and that our lives can go along smoothly, and then all of a sudden, sort of like out of left field, we get caught off guard in the middle of sometimes tragedy, sometimes um, serious things that have come up in our life, and we're kind of at a loss as to how to approach it, what to do. And we can wonder, something like the disciples were when the storm came up on the lake there. It said it was a squall, it was unanticipated. These were trained fishermen that were used to being out on water fishing at night, and yet they found themselves in a place that their life was in danger, and all of a sudden Jesus isn't with them in the boat to be able to help them out of it. And so I go through chapter 2, who's in charge? And those places in our life, we start to examine again who's in charge of our life. Often we're so used to running it ourselves and being independent, and that our society encourages that type of thinking. That, but as Christians, we need to go back to square one when we say, Lord, we're yours. We invited you into our life. We invited you into our boat. And we need to go back to remembering that you're in charge, and that you're aware of what's going on around us. In chapter 3, I talk about the blessing of adversity, the fact that we need to get used to the idea that life is not always going to be smooth, especially as a Christian. Sometimes we mistakenly may enter into it, and sometimes certain messages may encourage the idea that becoming a Christian is going to grant you everything that you've ever wanted, and you're going to have a good, prosperous life, and everything is going to go your way. And yet, when it doesn't happen, that's another stumbling block that we have a hard time getting past.
Yeah.
But adversity is something that is very much part of our journey in life,
Yeah.
and we need to not only expect it, but then be trained to focus on God, go to God with it, to be able to find his help through those matters. As much as we'd like all of our problems to go away immediately, sometimes God will miraculously do that. But more often than not, what he's going to do is be with you through it,
That's
and
right.
that to take you to the other side, the same as the disciples. In chapter 4, we get into the storm about the disciples there. And then in chapter 5, dealing with what all of us are going to encounter in some fashion when answers don't come. We've prayed a certain way, and we know the type of answer that we're looking for. And when we don't see that, either the type of answer or in the timing that it occurs, then we can kind of feel betrayed sometimes by God. I say sometimes that that can be a crucible for the Christian's faith, in that I'm sure we all know Christians where they've prayed for something to happen, and when it didn't, it
Yes.
kind of was a discouraging moment that left them discouraged to the point that they questioned their faith, and some may have even walked away because of that, as opposed to others that would say, draw closer and be able to cling to Christ, knowing He, in the end, is really their only hope through that storm that they're facing.
You
Um,
Gary. So Gary,
you,
can you hear me?
yes,
You can hear me. Okay, so I just want to go back to the first thing you said. You said
yep,
sometimes um, problems or challenges or things, it catches us up, like it comes nowhere out of left field, meaning that you're caught unaware something happened. And that's a human experience, really, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I think it's if you come with an experience with the Lord, then I think that there should be some fruit of showing that, okay, how do I respond to this? It doesn't mean that there be no grief. It doesn't mean that there be no pain. It doesn't mean you're ignoring what has happened. But that is a reality. But you're saying we're choosing another reality or a higher reality, which is using that as, you could almost say, a gateway or a place of relationship when you could learn who he is in this situation. It could be a place of growth. It could be a place of expanding our understanding of who he is, of life itself. And it also could bring us into a place of compassion, right? Of
yes,
helping other people, as simple as that. So I want
yes,
you to go back
yep.
to that place and tell us when you had maybe one or several left field situations, how did you handle it? How did you manage it?
I, I kind of look at everything that happens there, whether it's so often as they're categorized, and sometimes it's true, it can be an attack of the enemy upon our lives, or it could be God taking us in a direction that we didn't anticipate at all, we didn't see. And so I kind of look at it through the lens of Romans chapter 8, verse 28, where he says that he works all things for good. So many times we can be caught up in situations where we can't see any good, and sometimes they may be very difficult times where um, it may seem impossible to find good. But we know, I just hold on to the belief that regardless, God can change this situation, and so that it becomes something, like you said, that glorifies Him in the end. It's something I can share with others, that are struggling in their lives with maybe similar kinds of either tragedy or those things like we talked about out of left field we never saw coming, that have kind of knocked us off our feet, and we're kind of bewildered as to how to react to this and what to do about it. And that's where the trust comes in, is that if we know that we're God's child and believe in our hearts that he's a good God and that he's working everything for our good, and that I can trust him to take me through this. And that, yes, it's nice to be delivered, like I said, right away, but when that doesn't happen, Lord, I know that you're going to be with me through it. There's nothing that's escaping you, and he's going to work it for good in the end.
So what I'm hearing from you that's very close to my heart is our perspective, because the truth is tragedy or pain or whatever happens, pain in life, it is not about being bad or good. It's a human experience, and most time we don't plan for something quote unquote bad to happen. But what you're saying, our foundation, because this is we are talking about this as related to God and how we
Mhm.
see him and our relationship with him. That's what we're dealing with
Yes.
now, right? So you're saying
Yeah.
that sometimes, like for example, somebody may get a report about their lives that something is not good, or, like a
Mhm.
diagnosis, right?
Yes.
And when somebody get that diagnosis, our go-to, we know that God could heal, God could deliver,
Right.
God could change everything. We could do that. But I think people say, how do I maintain saying he is good in this whole situation? Because he doesn't cause sickness. This is not our father. He's a good father.
Yeah.
He is not
Mhm.
the one who orchestrates these things.
That's right.
But so you're saying our perspective when these things happen, when it doesn't
Yeah.
change like we wanted to, when we don't feel like a prayer is answered, or like some people, you might hear somebody say, oh, I got delivered, I got healed, and then for you it didn't happen. So what you're
Yes.
saying is going right to our
Yeah.
foundation and how we view him. Could you talk a little bit about that perspective and how we view God?
Yeah, it really is, as you pointed out there, all in perspective. And I look at it from the perspective of sonship. If I'm God's child, then I have certain inherited rights. I have a heavenly Father that's looking after me. And as much as in any family, there can be certain things that happen to their children that couldn't be helped, but the Father's still there to comfort them, to support them, to protect them as they go forward. And that's the important thing, is that you don't give up. You keep going forward because you know who you are in the Lord, and that I'm not forgotten. As God said, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. Therefore, I'm not alone through this. I can lean on him when there's it doesn't mean that you're not going to encounter those times where you can get discouraged, the same as David in that. But he talks to his soul, be encouraged, my soul. Why are you down? And that, but take confidence in the Lord. I look at it also as like so many times the Israelites being encouraged to trust God based upon what he's brought them through, taking them out of Egypt. Look what he's done for them. And that, don't you think he's going to be with you where you're going and be able to overcome? He's built up that trust. And that's what a lot of times in my life I can go back on. And when I'm facing something very difficult, look at the times in the past. He's been faithful, he's brought me through, and I'm trusting he's going to do the same for me as I'm going forward. So a lot of it can be based on our personal experience and walk with him.
That's really good. Okay, I love that. So let's go to this other aspect where what your book is based on, walking on water, because that's how this
Yeah.
book started, right? And what I have here is that now you said something. You said we invited you into our boat,
Mhm.
right? And so to me, that shows like, hey, I have a relationship with you. what are you doing about this? So it's based on Jesus, Yeshua, is sleeping in the boat. The disciples, there's a storm that is happening. They are scared. And then he said, little, oh, you have little faith, right? He got up and he said, oh, stop it. Almost like that. Because just be quiet, right? Not them, to the storm. So there's this odd aspect when somehow our authority as sons, we're able to quiet the storm. There's that odd aspect. There's times when the storms refuse to be quieted, right? And then there are times when the storm probably will be quiet because, and I think that's where the relationship, the one-on-one relationship comes in. Because what if when we, it says, storm, shut up, and it does not quiet, and it does a due diligence, it wrecked the boat and everything. I think that's where it comes right back to that place of intimate relationship with him. So tell us about that, about still in the storm, or Jesus, you're in our boat, be invited to our boat. What are you going to do about this? And he may be asking, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, well, the contrast between the two stories, because it did happen twice where they're caught in a storm. The first one, as you pointed out, Jesus is asleep in the boat there. So there's somebody that they could go to right there that they've seen perform all kinds of miracles. And this is, I believe, the first of the two where he gets up and rebukes the storm, and the winds and the waves calm down, and the disciples are in awe and saying, what kind of manner of man is this? They're astonished. And that's wonderful when it happens right away. And those are the kind of answers that we're looking for when we can pray and Jesus is right there and changes the thing, as you pointed out before. When, say, we're praying for somebody close to us that has received a diagnosis of something, and we pray for healing, and the doctors go back in and miraculously don't find any of, say it was cancer, any trace of cancer again, and they were healed miraculously right away. And that's wonderful. But the other time they're in the storm, Jesus isn't in the boat. They can't just go to the back there and wake him up, and he stands up and rebukes the winds and the waves as he did before. He's not there, and they don't know where he is, because as far as they're concerned, he was still back on the other side of the lake there, where they left him to get rid of the crowds after the feeding of 5,000 and pray afterwards. But the thing I love in the narration of that story is that he sees them out on the lake. He sees what they're going through. They're not out of his care or his watch. His eyes are on them. And he goes out to them on the water. And the interesting part I love is that he didn't just walk up to the boat and get in. He stops. He waits. And then they engage with him. And that I'm sure when they saw and realized it was Jesus, they're waiting for him to get in the boat, do like he did last time, just calm the wind and the waves. And that, but he doesn't do that.
What did he do this time?
Not right away, anyway. Sometimes he makes us wait, and that's where faith comes in. And in the book, I try and explain that, like when we're teaching our children how to walk, and that you can see them getting up to the footstool in the living room, and they're balancing themselves or on a chair, and they'll take a couple of steps and you're right there, and then boom, they're down on their behind in that, and they get back up, and as they make a couple more steps, we slowly draw back because we're encouraging them. And God will do the same thing in our lives to stretch us, to stretch our faith. And that if we could be like the first story where Jesus is in the boat all the time, there wouldn't be necessarily much faith involved. After seeing the first time he calms the wind and the waves, it's a case of, okay, do it again, and that. But in this case here, this is kind of different. Do you have faith? The winds and the waves are still tossing the boat around when Jesus is standing out on the water away from the boat. And Peter engages with him, and saying, Lord, if it's really you, and this is what I would call extreme faith, and that then bid me come. And that's why I say that I don't know if I was one of the disciples, that's the last thing I think I would have said. And
Mhm.
that I would have said, Jesus, if it's really you, come on
Come.
in the boat. I wouldn't be asked to get out of the boat. And that because to me, my safety's in the boat. But as we learn, as we go through this whole lesson, our safety's not in the boat itself. It's in Jesus who's on the water. And
Wow.
that's what Peter was finding out.
Wow.
And it wasn't really till he took his eyes off Jesus that he lost that safety. And that's what happens in our lives.
Oh,
And
wow.
that is that when we take our eyes off Jesus, that's when we can tend to sink into our problems.
Oh,
This was meant to help people really in all areas of their lives,
yes.
and that not just health, but their finances, any dramatic situation that demands often a miracle to be able to, quote, get to that other side, whether it's done instantly or whether it's a journey to get through with Jesus. Our focus needs to remain on Him,
Mm.
knowing that He will be with us through it, through faith.
Yes, this is powerful, Gary, because I love how you brought the two stories out because I wasn't thinking of the other one. I was thinking of the first one that you talked about. And I was thinking of that place where we're comfortable, right? We're in this
Yeah.
boat, this is there, we're children, daddy's still holding the tricycle and helping us to wheel around and so forth. So we're okay there.
Mhm.
And I love the aspect you brought out that we could say, Jesus, hey, do it again. He will do it again. And we have a song. If he did it for me, he will do it again for you. And I believe
Yeah.
that's a part of it, yes, in our growth process,
Yes.
because we have to
Yeah.
mature, right? We can't always be children. We
Mm.
have to mature. There are times when we could sit on daddy's lap and suck our thumb, but then we have to get away from there. We have to grow up as sons so we could be
Yes.
functionable sons in our father's kingdom,
Yes.
right? Because if it's a father and he has sons, or
Mhm.
we have to be able to function properly as he prayed, may your
Sure.
will be done on earth as it is in heaven. How will it be done if sons just want to remain in the boat and say, you do it again?
Yeah.
As I said, there's a good part for that, but I love the other part you brought out. When they saw
Mhm.
Jesus, he didn't come in the boat.
Yeah.
And he said,
Yeah.
is that really you? Is this really you? To me, that says, when that question was asked, is that they wanted that assurance. And then once they knew it was him, there was a sort of a assurance and a safety that, okay, it's you. Once it's you, we know we're good, right? But
Yeah.
I love what you said, that if it was you, probably me too, because I don't want to see no disturbing water tumbling, go like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
of fishies
Take the wind
inside.
and the waves
No,
away, and I'll be good.
I don't even know how high those were. I'm not doing that. But then he said, if it is you, ask me to come out here. And he said, well, come, right? And he began to walk on that problem. To me, that
Yes.
shows that he started to move in an elevated place. It's like
Mhm.
sort of like an ascended place where the problems is beneath you, like the eagles that fly above the storm, and they begin
Mhm.
to
Yes.
fly. And we're not ignoring the problem, but we're
Yeah.
just handling it in a different mindset, a different mentality. I'm not saying there be no crying, because all of us have walked through stuff. I'm not saying there would like not be
Yes.
tears or whatever, but somehow you're able to rise above in a way that the wisdom of our Father is able to fill us to function differently and see it in a different perspective. And you also said something
Absolutely.
with keeping your eyes on Jesus. I love that part. He said,
Yeah.
look to me, the author and the finisher of your faith. And that's
Yes.
so key. It's a key. That's the scripture I love for years. And even recently, I've
Yes.
been revisiting that. What does that mean to keep your eyes on him? Because people say that seems so elusive. How do I keep
Mm.
my eyes on him in the midst of this? From your story, tell us, what does that look like practically? How do we outwork keeping our eyes on him?
Yeah. Well, I find that God is interested in maturing us. If in Romans 8:29, the purpose after becoming a Christian is to make us more like Jesus. So to increase our faith, and that God is going to stretch us. He's going to take us out of our comfort zones. Um, we're going to find ourselves not always in calm waters. Sometimes you're going to have white rapids that you've got to go through, and that. And what are you going to depend upon? Like I said, these were experienced fishermen, and that. So this would have been familiar, but they were in circumstances that they couldn't control. And we often will find ourselves in life in circumstances that we can't control. And we need to realize that when we're going in directions we didn't anticipate, and that we need to remember once more our compass, our focus needs to be upon Jesus. Lord, if you're taking me in a different way than I expected, and that then I need to be able to trust you. And in times like that, I need to be able to go back, make sure that um, everything that is happening, again, if God's taking me in a different direction than I was praying, is it scriptural still? It doesn't contradict his word? If that part is good, then I just need sometimes to follow God's leading. One of the scriptures that I really enjoy also from Psalms, I believe it's from Psalm 119, where it is, I'm not sure if it's David says that he's a lamp to my feet and a light for my path. He gives me light for today to show me just where I need to walk for today. A light for the path, the direction I'm to go in, but he shows me just far enough to go for today. Running beyond that sometimes is what can get us into trouble. If God were to reveal his will for our lives, completely out in the open, and that sometimes, like Jonah, we may run in the opposite direction and say, I'm not interested, find somebody else. That's what Moses said when he was told he was going to go back to Egypt, and that, no, 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 I can't do it. And then also I can't speak very well. He was making so many excuses. God was getting upset with him about it. But God reveals to us, just as Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, and that don't worry about tomorrow. Today has enough troubles of its own to take care of you. Keep your eyes on Jesus, what he's doing today, and let him lead you. And it's amazing when you look back after he's brought you through that storm, um, the amazing things that he's done there.
I just want to go back to the boat again, because I would say maybe the boat is not always a storm that is painful. Like, say, it may not be, let us bring down to practical things. Maybe that is not a loss of a job or a sickness or death or something like that. Maybe the storm, the boat is being rocked to move us out of that comfortable place, that comfort zone where we settled in and say, okay, this works, I'll just do this today, this is the normal way that I'm doing it. But sometimes the storm, it comes in, as I said, not necessarily a tragedy or something, but it comes in a different way, just to shake the boat so that we could sort of wake up to move
Yes.
it to a different place. And do you feel like sometimes that would be the storm, whatever it looks like? Maybe, does it always have to be painful?
Um, I think it's painful in the sense that most humans are adverse to change. And the idea of rocking our boat by, uh, like you say, a possible job loss. If I could use an example, in 2009, I'd worked for a pharmaceutical company for 32 years, and at 17 of them in Montreal, where I'm from originally, and 15 here in Toronto. After that long, you really get settled into the idea that that's where I'm going to retire. You get used to those comfortable waters that you're sailing on, so to speak. And when our company was bought by another one, then I was going to be out of a job within a few months, and that actually is the setting for the story, as in the forward there. But we had these discussion groups with the company, since we had time to kind of prepare ourselves before leaving. And this was the information that they were relating that something like an eagle, when they're trying to get their eaglets to learn how to fly,
Yeah.
the eaglets are not going to do it on their own. They get pushed out of their nest
Mm,
and they start falling. And
wow.
then the mother eagle will fly underneath and then catch them. And this will be repeated enough times until the eaglet finally realized that those wings on the side were meant to fly. Did
Mm,
it did it enjoy the experience up to that point? I don't think so.
wow.
Very much like the disciples, it may have thought that, this is it. I don't know why mom did that. In the same way that we probably say, God, I don't know what in the world is going on here. We often say that in so many of um, the things we find ourselves in life. And yet, God can use that as a way of moving us to something better that we wouldn't have done on our own. So many times, we land up we find ourselves in a much better place when we trust God. When something adverse happens that we wouldn't have picked on our own, but God knows that we need that nudge to get where He wants to take us. And this is what he's doing with the disciples. He needs to increase their faith. Okay, it was increased a little bit when he was sleeping in the boat, but that's worked well for that time. Now they need another nudge. And so he stands outside the boat this time.
I like that. I really love the analogy of the eagle. And over again, that eaglet would be nudged out, more like drop you from a height,
Yeah.
drop you from this place where you're nesting to teach you to fly. But and I think unless that happens to us, we don't realize that we have wings to fly. We don't realize that we were given wings to fly. We don't realize the magnitude of what our Father has invested in us, because there's a scripture that says, I've given you everything that pertains to life and godliness. And I think
Yes.
that's the beauty of it. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing,
Well,
Gary.
that's stretching it where we get to know the power of God to take us through whatever it is. But our eyes need to stay focused on Him because not all situations, I understand, are easy to go through.
That's very true. Very true. I love how you shared about your job. And I know that I remember that story years ago that you had shared that story. And could you tell, how did you manage through it after you lost it? Do you want to share that? How did you manage?
Yeah, because it had been so long with the company, I got a very good package, and that actually is the center of the story, why what God was taking me through. That package for me was like another boat that I was very comfortable in, and I thought was going to last for a long time. But it also provided for a lot of other needs that we weren't able to do over those years. And the package just got used up a lot faster than I anticipated. And with my type of job that I was doing, I thought for sure I'm going to be able to find employment much faster than I was. And it was only when we were getting down to maybe the last couple of months of basically on our budget with what was left that I started to realize that if I don't find something soon, that we're going to be in serious trouble. In fact, I say in the book that I believe I ended up in 2011 after I was finished with the previous company that I had to borrow from my children and at half a month's worth of expenses. Uh, and then after that, I had no answers. And that's when God showed me what my boat was made of. As I state in chapter 10 there, what is your boat made of?
Tell us about
For
that.
everybody, it could be different things
Okay.
that is that's kind of they kind of are relying on. They're putting their confidence in instead of in God. And
Okay.
that was the lesson that I learned. God, I asked forgiveness. I put my faith in my package to carry me through. I've got no worries. And so it was very generous. and that, but going through it quickly and um, being presumptuous about being able to get work as fast. Again, um, me in a place that helped me to realize very quickly how I had taken my eyes off Jesus, and once I put them back, that's when I was able to share with my wife Kim there that no, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this month,
Mm,
but I'm not worried. I trust God. He's going to take us through. And within, I think about a week
mhm,
after the middle of that month, I started the new job.
mm, mm.
And that, so God was faithful, but I learned a good lesson in the process there.
Yeah, you said something very key. What is my boat? I learned what my boat was made of. Well, but
Hmm.
I am made of, right? And I think
Yeah.
that one of the things I know because people be watching this, keeping our eyes on him. We must say, why do I have to keep my eyes on you? Is it just to you to get glory? Yes, but I also believe keeping our eyes on the Lord is that whole thing you started with, being made into the image and likeness of Jesus. Because being made in the image and like it's the place of our origin. We're really talking about who we are in Him because you're made in His image and likeness,
Yes.
right? In His image and
Yeah.
likeness, and I believe that's the whole thing. And I don't the beauty of becoming who we were originally created to be. If
Yes.
we look at the whole thing, that's what it really is about. It's not necessarily, yes, God can get glory, but God can have glory all by himself, right? You know what I mean? He's not a narcissist, he's not a dictator, right? So I believe the whole aspect of
No.
keeping our eyes on him, looking into somebody's eyes and keeping our eyes there, it does something to our soul. There's a connection, there's an exchange, there's a sort of a communication that happens because I think it's in Revelation says his eyes are like fire. In Song
Hmm.
of Songs, it
Yes.
said he what it said, I moved with one glance of your eye. And that, that
Hmm.
that just spoke to me so clearly about the love aspect of looking at the eyes
Yes.
of our beloved. In
Yes.
Revelation, it seems it's there that his eyes like fire, that blazing fire. Our Father's a
Yes.
fire. And I think they're going right back to when you talk about the foundation. So it
Hmm.
has to be established in our foundations that he is good, he's integrity
Yes.
good, and he is love.
Yes.
Because when these things happen, we could doubt that goodness. We could we could
Yes.
we could
That's
get
right.
bitter and offended with him and everything else.
Hmm.
But the thing
Hmm.
is, offense and all those things, it actually destroys us, like medically even, it affects us, right?
Yes.
So I love what you
Yeah.
talk about, keeping our eyes on him, not just I'm
Yes.
looking to you because you could feel good because you're God, and just bringing it down as to realness, right? But because
Hmm.
there's a purpose
Yeah.
in that gaze,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, you're right. It has to be from the foundation that you're able to stand on, and that knowing personally and from experience walking with him, and that he is a good God, he's a good father, and that he loves you unconditionally. And like I was saying earlier, never leaves you, never forsakes you. Therefore, in whatever storm you find yourself in, and that you know that he is with you, like the disciples out on the lake, just because he's not in the boat, he still sees them. They're not out of his watch. He's still watching over them, and he goes out to them. They're not alone, and that he goes out to be with them, and that and encourage them.
Wow. So Gary, I cannot remember how many chapters it has, but would you tell me a little bit about you talk about Kim, or your wife who is with the Lord now. Could you tell us a little bit of the foundation that she has, if you
Yeah,
like?
the foundation, it's basically just I would say I called it her favorite charity. That, and I said that anything from the book and that would be going to that particular charity, and it's in this case it's Operation Smile Canada, And it's an organization made up of doctors and nurses that go out into basically third world countries and perform surgeries free of charge for children that are born with cleft lip and cleft palate. And this can be a devastating um, handicap, if you will, to children that are born. It makes it difficult, almost impossible to eat or even suckle, and that in those countries. And it requires, I found out, sometimes subsequent surgeries, because as they grow, they need sometimes additional help to be able to for the mouth to be able to work properly at the different stages of their growth into adulthood. And so they'll go back. Those children are cared for throughout their life, and that and they also train people within those countries to be able to start performing those surgeries. So my wife Kim one day saw it on TV, and she thought that this was a wonderful thing that we should try and support. And I was looking at the cost of one of those surgeries, the whole surgery itself, and I said, I don't think we can do that, hun. It's a bit expensive. It was about $240 US to do a whole surgery. But afterwards, I thought that this was something that I could support myself on ongoing through monthly donations, but also the royalties from any books or that are sold that would go to the charity, I call it, that was Kim's favorite.
Yes,
And
very.
she may have had other favorites, but I just called it hers.
That's her favorite. Okay, I love that. So all the proceeds from this book that you've written and dedicated in honor to Kim, who is with the cloud of witnesses now. Beautiful soul,
Yes,
beautiful heart. She has been
yes,
such a blessing also. I know you are too, but I'm just talking
yes.
about
She
her
is
now.
blessed.
It's such a blessing to
Yeah,
our own family. Years ago, we know what we're talking about. Amazing, amazing.
yes,
And I'm glad that she's part of the cloud of witnesses also. And this book that you've
yes.
dedicated, could you kindly show your book again so people would see and where we could get it on Amazon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
So
can get it on Amazon in paperback or download it on Kindle if you've got a Kindle
yes,
there, and it becomes easier
to
to
add.
read and take with you sometimes.
Yes. Wow, Gary.
But like I said, it was written basically so that people, when they encounter these things that we're never prepared for, it seems we know that we can trust God in all areas of our life so that we're not dragged under, but we can walk on top. We're not overcome, but we're overcomers
We could walk
through
on
Christ.
water. Yes, we could walk in the water.
Yeah.
Gary, this was a wonderful, wonderful discussion with you. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your heart. And it's good to read the book, but when you hear from the
Mhm.
author's heart and his own personal, because this is from your personal journey, so it's authentic.
Mhm.
Just didn't study
Yes.
something in a book. This is your life that you shared with us, and I really thank you for that. Are there any other last words you want to leave in this interview for our audience?
Um, no, just that again, hopefully what you draw out of it is encouragement that you're not alone. Sometimes when we go through these terrible tragedies or circumstances that overwhelm us, that we're alone. We're experiencing it, and sometimes we maybe find it awkward to share with people and that, but we're not. It happens to all of us at some time and in some way, and that we need to remember that uh, with Christ inside of us, we're not alone. We have a heavenly Father, and that He's going to take care of us and make sure that we come through on top.
Absolutely. So, Gary, just in case somebody want to connect with you, I will put your email address if you don't mind. It's up to you at the bottom of this video. Would you also say what your email address? if somebody want to contact
Yes,
you.
my email address for anybody who wants to contact me is GM and then my last name, BYFORD @gmail.com.
Okay, I will also
And you
put the
can
link
reach
at the
me.
bottom. Okay, and
Yeah.
also if anybody want to, that's if they want to buy your book, I will also put the link where they could get your book and know that all the proceeds will go to Smile. What is it
All
again?
proceeds go to Operation Smile Canada.
Operation Smile Canada. Thank you so much for this time, Gary. It was really beautiful and I love it. I would not forget how you put those stories
So
together.
thank you for this time. I appreciate it.
What I've learned today. Thank you so much.
Okay, God bless you too.
Bless
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.